The political environment in Canada underwent a rapid and notable transformation in early 2024. An anticipated Conservative victory, seemingly secured by a commanding 25 percentage point polling advantage following the incumbent Liberal Prime Minister's resignation announcement, failed to materialize according to subsequent polling data. Instead, information collected through high-frequency polling methodologies, beginning in January 2024, indicated a consistent erosion of Conservative support and a corresponding resurgence for the Liberal Party under its new leader, Mark Carney. This reversal, characterized by pollster Frank Graves as unprecedented in its speed and scale, saw the initial 25-point Conservative lead completely erased, with later projections shifting towards a potential large Liberal majority ahead of the scheduled April 28 election date mentioned in the source material. Initial skepticism regarding these findings reportedly diminished as the trend became more evident, seemingly correlated with specific, identifiable operational factors external to standard domestic political cycles. Examining the verified elements contributing to this significant shift in the Canadian voter landscape reveals crucial insights into the causal links between external stimuli, internal voter dynamics, and the resulting political realignment. A significant resurgence in national identity and attachment. This trend reversed a previously documented decline in national sentiment, reportedly reaching a 35-year low prior to these events. The analysis explicitly connects this revitalized sense of national cohesion, prompted by perceived external challenges, to the subsequent improvement in the Liberal Party's polling performance, identifying it as the core element behind their recovery from a historic low point. The impact of these developments was not uniform across the political spectrum, revealing important distinctions within the Conservative support base. Approximately 25% of the electorate, forming the party's core support under Pierre Poilievre and including absorbed People's Party voters, exhibited characteristics aligning with certain populist metrics. This group showed markedly higher approval ratings for Trump, favorable views of the Freedom Convoy, and a greater reported tendency to accept various forms of disinformation compared to Liberal supporters. Their views on issues like climate change and Russia also differed significantly. Crucially, the Conservatives' earlier peak polling required attracting an additional roughly 20% of voters, described as status quo conservatives or lapsed liberals. These voters did not share the core base's characteristics. They lacked deep institutional mistrust and held more conventional views on national issues. It was primarily this peripheral, alienated by the external rhetoric and motivated by the resurgence in national identity, that shifted away from the Conservatives, driving the overall polling change. The core 25% remained largely unmoved or even receptive to the triggering factors. In this altered landscape, perceptions of leadership capabilities also shifted. The Liberal leader, Mark Carney, reportedly gained a perceived advantage in areas traditionally considered Conservative strengths, such as competence in negotiating U.S. trade relations, managing the economy, addressing productivity, and controlling inflation. Conversely, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre encountered difficulties adapting his established campaign messaging. His focused critique, Trudeau bad, Canada's broken, axe the tax, while previously effective, reportedly lost resonance as concerns about national sovereignty became paramount for a significant portion of the electorate. Pivoting proved challenging, partly due to the campaign's proximity to a perceived victory, and partly due to the need to retain the core 25% base, whose pro-Trump stance made adopting a strong nationalist counterposition problematic. Attempts to negatively frame the Liberal leader reportedly failed to gain significant traction, according to polling tests. Underpinning these political movements was a notable transformation in the electorate's prevailing emotional outlook. Measurements mapping dominant emotions, hope, despair, anger, or fear, indicated a shift towards hope, despite acknowledged anxieties surrounding potential tariffs, annexation discussions, and broader geopolitical uncertainty. This rise in hope is interpreted as reflecting a collective resolve among Canadians to assert sovereignty and navigate a changing global environment. While anger and fear can motivate voters, despair often suppresses participation. The emergence of hope suggested a populist feeling capable of meeting challenges, aligning with the party perceived as better equipped for the current context. From an operational standpoint, the methodology employed for data collection proved significant in identifying this trend early. Unlike competitors relying on lower frequency sampling aggregated weekly or monthly, the use of high-frequency daily polling, collecting approximately 300 samples per day, provided the necessary agility to detect transient responses and emerging shifts in near real time. This difference in observational capacity likely explains the initial skepticism encountered when these findings diverged from the prevailing narrative supported by less granular data. Interestingly, this situation unfolds against a backdrop where the polling industry in Canada reportedly maintains a relatively favorable public perception and track record, contrasting with documented challenges and lower public trust observed in the United States. The absence of major predictive failures comparable to the 2016 U.S. election experience is cited as a potential factor contributing to this higher degree of confidence within the Canadian context. This trust allows polling data, when rigorously collected, to serve as a credible indicator of underlying political dynamics, such as the starkly contrasting reactions within the Conservative coalition itself. While the core 25% base remained largely unaffected or even receptive to the external rhetoric concerning tariffs, annexation, or figures like Trump, the peripheral 20%, encompassing status quo conservatives and disaffected former liberals, reacted negatively. This divergence created an operational fracture within the conservative support structure. This internal division presented a significant challenge for the conservative leadership's strategic response. Whereas the liberal leader appeared to capitalize on the renewed focus on sovereignty and international relations, gaining perceived credibility even on economic matters, the conservative leader faced constraints. His previously successful messaging lost traction, and the ideological alignment of his core base limited his ability to pivot towards a strong nationalist stance that might have appealed to the departing peripheral voters without alienating essential existing supporters. Attempts to reframe the narrative through attacks on the opponent reportedly proved ineffective in altering the trajectory indicated by polling measurements. The dominant emotional undercurrent of the electorate also presented a contrast to what might have existed previously. Instead of persistent anger or despair that could benefit an opposition party promising change, a sense of hope emerged, suggesting a population focused on resilience and capable leadership in the face of external pressures, ultimately aligning with the perceived strengths of the resurgent Liberal Party. A closer examination reveals the distinct ideological and informational ecosystem occupied by the core 25% of conservative supporters. Their significantly higher propensity, reportedly 25 times greater than liberals, to approve of Donald Trump, view the Freedom Convoy favorably, and accept narratives often classified as disinformation regarding vaccines, wildfires, climate change, or Russia, indicates a worldview substantially divergent from the median Canadian voter. Metrics associated with right-wing authoritarian populism, such as preferences for obedience over creativity in child-rearing, further underscore the specific profile of this foundational, aligning it closely with observed patterns in other Western populist movements like Brexit or Trump's base in the U.S. This unique composition is not merely descriptive, it carries direct operational consequences. The factors triggering the broader shift in public opinion, namely the perceived excesses and threats emanating from the Trump administration, did not register as negative stimuli for this core group. Their affinity for Trump and distinct information sources effectively insulated them from the recoil effect experienced by other voters, including the more moderate conservatives and former liberals who had previously inflated conservative polling numbers. Consequently, the Conservative Party found itself in a strategically difficult position. Its leadership, having successfully cultivated these populist forces and built momentum with a disciplined message focused on domestic discontent, faced an environment where that message became less salient for a crucial of potential voters. Simultaneously, the ideological alignment of its core base hindered any attempt to adopt a robustly nationalist posture critical of the U.S. administration, as such a move risked alienating these essential supporters who viewed Trump favorably and were unperturbed by discussions of tariffs or even annexation. This strategic inflexibility contrasts sharply with the situation facing the Liberal leader. Mark Carney appeared better positioned to leverage the altered political climate, with his background seemingly lending credibility to his capacity for managing complex international economic relations and defending national interests, issues thrust to the forefront by the external discourse. His perceived competence extended even to domestic economic management, encroaching on territory traditionally dominated by conservatives. The overarching shift towards hope, rather than anger or despair, further solidifies this analysis. It suggests an electorate less focused on punishing the incumbent for past grievances and more concerned with securing capable stewardship through anticipated future turbulence, favoring the leader and party seemingly better aligned with that requirement in the prevailing circumstances. Extrapolating from these operational observations, several broader strategic implications emerge regarding the nature of contemporary Canadian politics and potentially wider trends. The sheer velocity and magnitude of the observed polling shift underscore a significant potential for volatility within the Canadian electorate. It suggests that voter alignments, even seemingly entrenched ones reflected in substantial leads, can be rapidly reconfigured by potent external events, particularly those originating from the United States and impacting core national interests. This episode vividly demonstrates the power of national sovereignty as a political mobilizing theme. When perceived external threats related to territorial integrity or economic independence arise, they possess the capacity to swiftly supersede prevailing domestic concerns and established party narratives, becoming the central axis around which voter preferences realign. The experience also highlights the critical importance of strategic adaptability in political campaigning. A message framework, however disciplined and previously successful, such as the conservative focus on domestic issues and critiques of the prior government, can become operationally ineffective almost overnight if the fundamental context shifts due to external factors. The inability or unwillingness to pivot messaging to address the newly dominant concerns can prove decisive. Furthermore, perceptions of leadership attributes appear highly context-dependent. In periods dominated by concerns about international relations and economic stability under external pressure, voters may prioritize perceived competence and trustworthiness in these specific domains, potentially overriding traditional party advantages or disadvantages on such issues. The leader seen as better equipped to navigate the specific challenges of the moment gains a significant operational edge. Finally, the internal composition of a party's base can impose significant strategic constraints. When a core constituency holds strong ideological alignments, particularly alignments sympathetic to external actors or viewpoints perceived negatively by the broader electorate, it limits a leader's maneuverability in responding to shifting public sentiment, creating a potential vulnerability if the political environment changes rapidly. This complex interplay of external events, internal voter dynamics, leadership perceptions, and strategic choices, illuminated by detailed polling analysis, provides a crucial framework for understanding the forces currently shaping the Canadian political landscape. Therefore, the observed political realignment in Canada offers a clear illustration of how external geopolitical discourse can directly interact with domestic political structures to produce rapid and significant shifts in voter sentiment. The specific rhetoric concerning trade and sovereignty emanating from the United States acted as the primary catalyst, activating latent national identity concerns within a broad of the Canadian electorate. This activation, however, exposed pre-existing fissures within the Conservative coalition, revealing a core base insulated from, or even sympathetic to, the external stimuli, while peripheral supporters reacted negatively. The resulting dynamic demonstrably constrained the Conservative strategic response, while concurrently creating an environment where the perceived competencies of the Liberal leadership aligned more closely with the electorate's emergent priorities. This sequence underscores the profound influence of external context on national politics and the critical dependence of campaign strategy on the prevailing and potentially volatile operational environment. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more geopolitical insights like this. I love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Share this video with anyone interested in deeper perspectives on current events. Until next time, stay informed and think critically. Thank you.